Hi everyone, this is Misty.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Angelica.
And I'm Lori.
And the book we chose for this presentation is called The Kissing Hand. It is written by Audrey Pan and illustrated by Ruth Harper, printed in 1993. And the summary for the book would be, it's about two raccoons, basically. One of them is called, the smaller one is called Chester, and Mrs. Raccoon is his mom. And he's so nervous about going to school because it's gonna be his first day, and his mom is trying to comfort him by saying it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be so much fun. But since he's still nervous, she comes up with an idea of giving him a kissing hand, which is she kisses Chester's hand and tells him that he should put his hand to his cheek whenever he's feeling alone or he's away from his mom, so that he can feel that his mom still loves him even though she's not around. And Chester loves this idea so much that he wants to do the same thing for her mom, and he gives her the kissing hand too and tells him that she needs to do the same thing if she wants to feel that her son loves him too, and that's how they show compassion for each other.
The character trait we chose is compassion, and we define compassion as having an understanding of what someone else is going through and what you can do to support them or help them. We chose compassion because the main focus of The Kissing Hand is the story is both mother and the child show compassion towards each other. So with the students, we would do a compassion map, and we would get ideas of how they understand compassion. For example, an example would be if my friend needs a pencil, I give them a pencil, or if they don't have anything to eat, I can share my lunch with them. Just getting ideas about compassion before we share the story with them.
We also chose some images, and I'll step closer so you can see them. We chose some images that we felt that children would be able to relate to, that it's a universal emotion of compassion. Simple acts of kindness, a hug for your friend, helping someone across the street, helping people in a natural disaster, and just helping the elderly, that it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. It's just a simple courtesy that you're paying to someone else.
Okay, and after we do that activity, making it relatable to students, we would introduce them to our story of the kissing hand, and we would make the connection that when we were looking at the pictures, we were looking at human acts of compassion. In our story, we're going to look at it through some animal characters, the Mrs. Raccoon and Chester. This is our reading activity, so we're going to be doing a story map with them, and we're going to be asking them to look for or pay attention to the characters' actions in the story, and we're going to look at it through the beginning, middle, and end of the story. And we want them to focus on those actions and look for acts of compassion. So we would start by doing a read aloud of the text, and we would stop at this part in the story. So this is still the beginning, and up until this point, Chester is explaining to his mom how nervous he is to go to school and how he doesn't want to go, and his mom is trying to comfort him and encourage him by telling him all the fun things that he would get to do. And she also tells him that she has a secret for him that would make him feel better. So we would stop here, and we would ask for students to identify some of the characters' actions and help them hopefully identify the act of compassion so far in the story, which would be the action of Mrs. Raccoon listening to Chester and trying to comfort him and soothe him. So we would add those actions to the beginning part of our story now. From there, we would continue reading until we get to this part in the story. Up until this point, Mrs. Raccoon has given Chester the kissing hand, and he is reflecting on how much he loves the kissing hand. As you can see in the illustrations, there's lots of hearts. and it shows how much it means to Chester. So we would pause here again and talk about the character's actions in the story. And the actions we would want the students to identify is that Mrs. Raccoon is showing compassion to Chester because she has given him the kissing hand and it is making him feel better. So we would add that to the middle part of the story map. And then we would finish until we get to the end of the story. And at the end of the story, Chester has given Mrs. Raccoon a kissing hand to comfort her, and she is watching Chester go to school, and she has her hand on her cheek. She's remembering her son and how much he loves her. So that would be the act of compassion we would want students to identify, is that Chester gave his mother a kissing hand as well, and we would add that to the end part of our story map. Once we'd finished the story in our story map together, we would move on to the student's independent activity, which would be a Venn diagram.
So we picked this activity because we wanted the students to be able to compare and contrast the actions of Mrs. Raccoon and Chester and how they're similar and different than each other. And at this point, we would want the students to get in pairs and work as groups and have discussions about what could be some of the similarities and differences. And we would want them to come up with ideas like for similarities, like the love they have for each other or the compassion they want to show for each other. And the differences would be that the meanings behind the actions, like Mrs. Raccoon showing the compassion because her son was nervous, and Chester showing back the compassion because Chester loves his mom. And that's how.
Yeah, those are just some examples
Yes.
we would expect them to come up with.
Yes, and once they come up with those ideas, we would just write them on the bigger Venn diagram we have on the board. Yes.
All right, then we selected some writing and craft activities that you can do with your students. I've got a few examples to show you here. Of course, you can get others from other teacher sites, Teachers Pay Teachers, Pinterest, but these are a few that we particularly liked that we felt had meaning and can be done through a variety of grades, through preschool to third grade. So we have a cut and paste activity along with a small writing sample the students can do. We have a compare and contrast that you could do how Chester felt on his first day of school, and that the students can relate it, that it can go from text to self to show that example in the story to help with reading comprehension. We have a simpler activity for younger students where the teacher would provide a written text portion and the students could provide the art sample with the assistance of the teacher. And then finally, we have a journaling activity that could be done by students in older grades. And this could be something that if you're working on a unit of character traits, this could be something that the students use during the week for each character trait, or it could be something that you're using throughout a 9-week period, or even something that you could continue through the school year, that the students could write down thoughts and feelings about acts of compassion or other character traits that are either demonstrated by them or shown to them. And that would be a really great reflection activity for your class. Okay, and all right, and then to sum up why we think this story promotes compassion is that it's just a simple, sweet story of a mother and son, and it shows children that caring and concern can be shown through the simplest of gestures, doesn't have to cost any money, and that they're truly gifts of the heart. It also shows that there's always someone who knows how we feel and sympathizes and can show that they care about us. We also showed with pictures to the students that we could display in the classroom that they can look back on, acts of showing young people and old people helping others. Again, simple gestures, helping someone cross the street, helping others at a time of need or during a natural disaster, and giving someone just a comforting hug when they're sad or upset. And we just felt this was a really sweet story and something that kids of all ages could relate to. Thank you.